Okay, now we'll see how you can declare a function. Suppose we want to write a function that has two input values and return the sum of the two values. It's very simple and maybe it's not necessary to define a function to do this task, but it's just an example to explain you how to declare a function. Suppose that this function returns an integer. So there we have to write int, which is the type of the value that the function returns. Then the name of the function, for example, sum values, and there the arguments, the input arguments of the function. When you write the input arguments, you have to separate the arguments with a comma. For example, in this case, we have two arguments, int val1, comma, int val2. This function has two arguments, two integer. Okay, now open and close the braces. Inside there, I write int sum and declare this variable, which is the sum of the two input variables, sum equal to val1 plus val2. And then I use the keyword return to return back the value. Sum, return sum. Okay, the function has been declared. Now we can verify if what I have written can effectively work. So there, okay, I can delete these lines because they are not necessary, and also this one. There, I write, for example, int v1 equal to 10 and int v2 equal to 27, for example. And then int s equal to some values, v1 and v2. There I call my function and I give the two input values, v1 and v2. Okay, and then I write serial dot print s to verify if the value is correct. So I can check, verify, and build code and load it to the board. Now, if I open the serial monitor, you can see that the value 37 is printed. So the function is working well because the two values v1 and v2 are 10 and 27. So the function is working well. Okay, this is a very little example about how to define a function. How I have previously said, we could have function that doesn't return any values, or function that do not have input values or have one or multiple input values. Of course, in the next video we'll see different kind of function. Another thing to say is that the variable sum that I define inside a function, sum values, exists only inside this function. So if I try to call to use this variable in another function, for example there, I write, for example, sum equal to 10, okay, and I try to build the code, there is an error. Sum was not declared in the scope because I have declared it, the variable sum, inside the function sum values, so it exists only inside the function. Another thing to say, I have already said it maybe, but I want to repeat it, is that the statements inside a function will never be executed if you don't call the function. When you call the function, in our example there, the statements will be executed. We can see this, for example, writing there serial.println some values. Okay, now I load the code and open a serial monitor. As you can see there, some values is printed because I am calling the function some values. So the statements inside the function are executed. But if I don't call this function, for example, I comment this line and I have to comment this line too, and then I let it code. Then I open the serial monitor. As you can see, nothing is printed. So the statement serprint.ln presum values and the other statements will never be executed by our software. Okay. Ferma. Riparto. After you have declared a function, you have to pay attention to call the function in the right way. For example, if you write a different name, some value, instead some values, and you try to read the code, you will have an error. Some value was not declared in the scope because the name is some values. Or for example, if you forgot an input argument and give only, in this case, only one input argument instead of two arguments, and try to compile the code, too few arguments to function in some values. So after you have defined a function, pay attention riparto. Okay, when you declare a function, it's important that when you call it, that you call it in the right way. For example, pay attention that the name is correct, because for example, if there I forget the S, oh sorry, the S, and write some value instead of some values and try to verify the code, I have the error some value was not declared in the scope because the name of your function is some values. Or for example, my function in this case wants two input arguments. If I forget an argument and write v1, only v1 for example, and try to verify the code, I have another error, too few arguments to function in some values in int. Okay, so very important to pay attention that you call the function in the right way. So with the right name, with the right input arguments. And also the input arguments, the type of the input arguments have to be correct. For example, there, if I write v1 and v2, so I have two input arguments, but there I write float and float, so these two variables are two float variables, and try to compile to verify the code. Riparto. Okay, after you have declared a function, you have to pay attention when you call the function that you call it in the right way. For example, the name has to be correct. If there, for example, I forget the S and I verify the code, I have the error some value was not declared in the scope because the right name is some values and not same value. Or, for example, our function, the function that we have declared, wants to input arguments. If there I forget one argument and try to verify the code, I have another error, too few arguments to function in some values. The compiler will help you, but anyway, pay attention to call the function in the right way. Okay, that's all for now. See you in next videos. Bye.